Welcome to the GoneAForeign Podcast. I'm your host, Nazim Zheek. And today I'm pleased to have someone who I'm happy to call my friend. I met him while hiking a volcano, not the one you see behind me. He's a hero, a nurse, and he just came off a shift. I'm happy, appreciate you making time for me today. Uh, Please welcome Matt from Canada.
Hey Naz, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's really nice to see you. You know,
Always, man. Yeah, man.
backpacking is the best
Well,
memories of my life, and to reconnect with the people you meet is just it's one of the warmest feelings to reconnect with someone like that. It's like a
absolutely, man.
Guatemala.
All the way from Guatemala. Last time I saw you, I think you was leaving Samook. You left the day
Yeah,
before I did.
yeah.
But yeah, man, it's always a pleasure to see you. And how have you been? 2020 has
I've
been
been good. It's the world's just been a different place since we last met. Being a nurse in a pandemic, it's a bit of a
so.
it's a challenge at times.
Sometimes I think about that trip. We took it in November of 2019, so it was like pretty much the last trip you could have before traveling is essentially just changed forever.
Absolutely, and a miracle we didn't get trapped out there.
Yeah, but in
Canada,
hindsight, I'm glad we went on it, man.
me too. I hadn't traveled for over a year before that. I was out of the game for a bit, and yeah, it was just nice to get out there again.
So before we get into Guatemala, tell me. So what about growing up in Canada? I think you told me like Vancouver area that got you more into traveling, or more specifically like solo traveling and backpacking.
Yeah, well, it's Canada. I grew up on Vancouver Island. It's just across from Vancouver. You have to take a ferry about an hour and a half. One of the biggest issues of traveling in Canada is it's so expensive. There are only, I think, like three major airlines. So for the price of me flying Vancouver to Toronto, I could probably pay the same and go to Thailand for a round trip. So
Yeah,
um, yeah, airfare in Canada is quite expensive, and so a lot of Canadians are sad to say they don't get to see their own country, just due to the cost. But it's nice to just go out and see the world for the same or
the
less
same
price.
or you know, I that's why I gravitated backpacking opposed to traveling in the US for other reasons that we'll get into later. But for the most part, it's like if I wanted to go to the Grand Canyon, I could like going to Guatemala would be a cheaper trip. So it's like it's interesting how that comes to comes to be. Before we get into Guatemala again, tell me what countries have you been to thus far?
Well, I've been to Southeast Asia a few times. I went to Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia in 2016. I went to the Philippines, Indonesia, Singapore in 2017.
Wow.
Growing up as a kid, my parents always they took me down to Mexico, a few islands in the Caribbean, Jamaica,
Nice.
St. Martin, St. Thomas, the Bahamas,
Damn.
Barbados,
Okay.
and the states isn't very far away. I've done plenty of trips down to California, just being on the West Coast, even driving down there, over to Washington and Seattle for
Okay.
occasional Blue Jays and Mariners games.
Nice.
Those are always fun. Only time you can really see a Canadian baseball team too, when you're on the West Coast.
Oh, true.
Yeah, Oregon, Hawaii, Florida. Those are about pretty much the places I've been. And then I decided to cruise down to Central America. Yeah, I guess November 2019. And yeah,
Nice.
the
So
Nicaragua,
then Nicaragua. Okay. Nice.
El Salvador, and then Guatemala.
Okay. So what drew you to the Central America region and to do that trip you did? So tell me again, it was El Salvador, Nicaragua, and Guatemala.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd been to Asia a few times, and there's so much of North America. There's so much in Central America, South America, and I don't have to take a trans-Pacific flight to get there. So
Yeah,
I thought maybe just stay on the same continent and check it out. It's warm, it's vibrant with culture, and that's just kind of what drew me there.
absolutely. So how about the volcano? So I'll tell you, climbing that volcano was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. I've done some difficult things, uh, but though it was, I found it extremely difficult. There were people way ahead of me. There were people way behind me. I was like somewhat in the middle of the pack, if you recall. But you was all the way in front. You was with the experienced hikers. So, but talk to me. How was hiking Acatenango for you and that experience?
Honestly, I'd have to say it's one of the hardest hikes I've had to do in my life. Growing up in Canada, we have tons of hikes, but nowhere near that kind of elevation. Altitude sickness was a huge factor for a lot of
Yeah,
people. You
somebody
know,
went down. We got him back, but yeah, it's funny you say that because I'm not a hiker at all. Like that's probably maybe like the fifth or sixth hike I've ever done, and definitely nothing to that altitude. Um, do you hike often? Can you compare that to some of like some other hikes that you've been on in other countries?
to be honest, that was the first time I did a really serious high elevation hike in a foreign country. Here at home, I've done plenty of hikes in the parks. The Strathcona Park. I've been to remote areas like Della Falls in Canada, one of the tallest waterfalls in the country. But never was I ever challenged to go as high as almost nearly 4,000 meters above sea
Yeah,
level. And some people we were talking to on that hike, they were taking acetazolamide, they were taking anti-altitude pills, they were
yeah,
prepared, they maxed out some drugs just to
yeah,
proactively treat the altitude sickness. And um, when you start getting into medications for just even hiking, just to get you through it, that's entirely a different level of hiking. So yeah, I was charging up the hill, but I was gassed. I
your
was gassed.
gas.
Yeah,
Yeah, that makes me feel better. It was so cold at the top too. I thought just being above the clouds for me was like the coolest part. The first day we got up there and it was like the sun was setting and yeah, just sitting right above the clouds, I thought, and you couldn't see the volcano, but you could hear it. And I think that was the most nerve-wracking part of being at the top is not seeing the volcano, but hearing it in all its roaring glory. So tell me, would you think of the volcano? Was it like how you anticipated it, or is that your first volcano?
that's my first active volcano I think I've
Uh,
seen. I mean, Acatenango,
yeah,
thankfully dormant, but right across the way, Mount Fuego or Volcano
Fuego.
Fuego,
Yes,
Fuego erupting. I had never heard anything like that. It was like thunder on steroids.
it was like thunder in bass, like the subwoofer's like right behind you at all times. But the mountain, though we could see it, it was pretty far away or close. I don't even know how close they were in comparison. But either way, like you could see it clearly, but it was almost like I could feel it in my chest. It was
I felt the ground shaking. I felt a vibration in my feet every time that volcano went off and lava was spewing out in the air. And it sounded
yeah.
like it could have been an explosion. I've never heard one of those, but
Yeah, it's like in hindsight, I would, I don't know, knowing what I know now, if I hike that volcano again, definitely like a once in a lifetime experience for me. But something I definitely, and the thing about the volcano as well is there are people, all different types of people on the mountain in terms of like athleticism. Like I think even a couple people are like chain smoking up the mountain. So I feel like it was though it was difficult, it's definitely doable at your own pace kind of thing.
oh, absolutely.
So after we hiked the volcano, I think next time I saw you was on the lake, Lake Atalan.
Yeah.
Um and we had that day over in San Marcos. We jumped off the cliff. we was listening to music. It was definitely a vibe. How did you find out about San Marcos and what was the hostel you said? Free Cerveza?
I was at free cerveza, free beer after 6 p.m. Unlimited free beer.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that place was wild. And he was sleeping in tents. I stayed there for one night. It was right on the water too. It's beautiful, beautiful hostel.
absolutely beautiful hostel. No, it was one of the favorite ones on my trip, and it was all eco-friendly. That was kind of their a marketing strategy, if you will. But
Yeah,
it was a
the
great.
compost toilets. Uh,
Once you see one and you use one, you'll never forget.
yeah, it's definitely was an interesting to say the least. So we go from San Marcos jumping off the cliff, and I think next time I saw you again, I think this is our last stop together, was uh Samook Champagne. Um I think there we did different tour days, so I mostly just saw you in the hostel. Uh just give me I think that the Zephyr Lodge where we stayed was one of the most unique hostels I've ever stayed in. I think they talking about Free Cerveza, the compare and contrast for the two of them, really different. But I guess just give me your thoughts on your stay at the Zephyr Lodge and Smook Champagne as a whole.
Yeah, well, Zephyr Lodge, it was, it definitely had a certain party atmosphere at night that it could just, it was a place you could go to, really relax in the daytime, sit by the pool, go to the hot tub, have a few drinks with your friends, and then at night, once the music starts and the drinking games start, it was just skyrocketing into one of the
Yeah,
best parties.
yeah. The tab system was dangerous. I've never opened a tab at a hostel before, but it was a dangerous combination.
I absolutely shocked Bill when I left because yeah, I've
Yeah,
never started to tap myself. But having looking back at that, it was just crazy because you're having a good time, you just go drink after drink, and then
yeah,
all your food as well, and then boom, it's like 5 days of hotel meals, drinks, and just having fun.
yeah.
Food was
Yeah, I like to call that place a backpacker's paradise, but like it was definitely an interesting one to say the least. So after Samook, we parted ways. I think I went to Belize after that. But I remember you telling me this story in in Samook, but tell me before you climb that Tetanengo, you're in Guatemala City. Tell me how you got to Antigua from there. Tell me that story.
I think that was probably one of the scariest moments of my life. I started off in El Salvador. I was in Santa Ana. It's a really small cultural town. Got on a bus, and weren't that many people who spoke English really well. And so they said, "Yeah, this bus goes to Guatemala City. It'll drop you off in Zone 17, and there will be buses and cabs to take you to Antigua." So I'm on this bus. I'm on this bus for 12 hours, 13 hours maybe. We get there. It's pitch black. It's so dark.
What
It's
time did
kind
you
of
get to
felt.
Guatemala City?
I got there. I think I got there at about 9 p.m. 9 p.m. at night.
Okay.
I had left like early in the morning from El Salvador, and when we arrived, it wasn't like a big bus hub. It wasn't like there was an airport close by, or malls, restaurants, hotels. This was like the ghetto. I
Yeah.
had never been in a place like this. Shanty houses, bars on all the windows. Sometimes like iron metal doors that looked like it was the entrance to a safe. And I got out there, and once the cabs kind of picked up people who were coming off the bus, and I said, no, I'm gonna go find a restaurant and just get like an Uber. I'm gonna find my way to Antigua. I'm not gonna get gouged at by a taxi driver.
Yeah.
And so there was nothing around. It was just kind of a ghetto, and I was walking the streets with my backpack. I was cold. I didn't realize how high up in the mountains Guatemala
Yeah,
City was.
I think that was one thing I wasn't ready for either because I stayed a night in Guatemala City. Extremely cold at night.
I wasn't
So
ready
high
for that.
up.
I'm coming out of El Salvador with my shorts, my tank, and I'm freezing. I feel like I'm back home in Canada. And nothing's open, no Wi-Fi, and I'm just trying to get my way out of town to Antigua. And so I kept on looking for a way to get there, a bus. I kept on waiting for a cab to go by. Nothing came. Um, like I said, I couldn't. My cellular wasn't working. I couldn't get an Uber. So, um, I kept on going up to this random group of people. There's this guy with a motorcycle, and he was kind of laughing with his friends. I heard him say the word gringo, just
Yeah. And how good's your
oh,
Spanish?
oh, awful.
Un
I
poco?
only, yeah, Coco. So this guy, his name was Jonathan. He must have felt so bad for me. He put me on his motorcycle and he drove me all the way through this ghetto in Guatemala City, Zone 17, drove me all the way to the other side of the city, pulled over on a gas station, hailed a cab for me, negotiated a like locals rate to Antigua, and I hugged him, and they put me in the cab, and we just went on. I went on my way to Antigua, but on our way there, I had never met this guy, and we were cruising on his. I was on the back of his
Yeah,
motorcycle.
just let me just hop on a stranger's motorcycle.
Never met him before, and he doesn't really speak the best English. I don't speak the best Spanish. He just understood I needed to get to Antigua, and he took me through these back alleys on the back of his motorcycle. And for a moment, I was thinking, "This is it. This is how I can
Yeah.
go." At any moment, I'm gonna get mugged. He's gonna pull over. I'm gonna get mugged. Something bad's gonna happen. But it didn't,
Yeah.
and I had a feeling that this was a good guy, and I just trusted my instincts. And he got me to where I needed to go, and I was so ever thankful because, yeah, he messaged me when I got to Antigua, and he said you were in a very dangerous place. You shouldn't be in Zone 17 at night.
Yeah, that's that man really more or less saved your life. I think that's to date probably one of the craziest things I've ever heard traveling. Um and so I remember you telling me before he recently reached out to you again.
Yeah, so I know that Guatemala heavily reliant on tourism. And he works, I guess, as some sort of tour guide in the area. And he reached out to me on WhatsApp, and he said, "Hey Matt, this COVID-19 pandemic is really hard on tourism. I'm not getting any money. I'm not getting paid. Um, I can barely feed my family. I can't feed my kid. I can't feed my girlfriend." And he just said, "Do you think you could send me $20 and I will pay you back?" He didn't, and I sat there thinking about it, and to me, it was no question.
Yeah,
I was
of
writing on the paper.
course.
This guy did something for me as a stranger that, it completely made me rethink what I would do and how I treat other people. Um, I reached out to my family and said, "Look, this guy saved my life. I was trapped in the ghetto in Guatemala. I was scared and I had nowhere to go and I was in a bad place and he
Yeah.
didn't have to help me, and I think this guy saved my life. So, he's having a hard time in Guatemala. I'm gonna send him some money if you guys want to pitch in. Like, please pitch in." So we sent
That's
him about
beautiful.
80 US, and I sent it to Western Union in Guatemala City, and he got the money, and he messaged me and he said, "Hey, like I don't think I can pay you back for this. This is way more than what I asked for." And I said, "No, this is a gift. You saved my life." I told my
It's
entire
like the
family,
least you could do. That's beautiful, man.
and
It's
so it's karma.
yeah,
It's
man. The good karma comes back too. So it's like shout out to that guy. But so yes, that was a scary situation. But tell me, do you think is there something you could have done to prevent, just pulling up in zone 17 by yourself with no cell reception?
Yeah, honestly, I know, having lived that experience, um, I think I would honestly never want that to happen to me again. I would try to research a bit more, but to be perfectly fair, when I left El Salvador, um, I had done as much research as I could by talking to the locals, and just, I kind of trusted them and said, "Is there going to be a safe way to Antigua?" And they said yes, there will be taxis there. And you know what? They were not wrong. There were. I was I was just kind of being a bit cheap. I was looking for
Yeah,
like an Uber or a bus or something. I didn't
I
want to
feel
pay
that.
a cab for an hour ride to the town next over.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like as
and
a
I think
backpacker, that's just like the frame of mind. It's like, oh, airport taxi is expensive. Let me just go a little bit. It's like the general rule of thumb. Um,
and that could have, and pinching pennies, that could have cost me my life.
yeah, P-
And so I think that's the only place where I went wrong is, you're the broke backpacker. You're looking to save a few bucks here and there, and that's how you stay out traveling a bit longer. Yeah.
that makes sense, man. Well, of course, I'm more than ecstatic that you made it through that. Did that change your perception on like safety, or change your perception on like have you ever had any like similar encounters? Um,
Honestly, no, I don't think I've ever been in a situation, like that. The thing that I guess, and that's a big difference between Central America and I guess going to Southeast Asia, is in Southeast Asia, you know, everybody's dying to learn English. They want to learn English. That's a way to get a job in tourism. That's a way to get out of poverty. Central America, Latin America, these are all numerous and populated countries. They all speak Spanish. They have their own sort of domestic tourism within it. The need to speak
yeah,
English,
English.
it
I
doesn't
was
really happen as much.
It doesn't. That was one thing I realized from Southeast Asia to Central America, is that the standard in Southeast Asia was English, so it was a little easier to get around. In Central America, if you don't, for the most part, like speak Spanish or don't understand what they're saying, because some places they don't even. I don't want to say they don't try to speak English, but I guess it's more people that come through speak Spanish, type of thing, and that's just again
Absolutely.
the standard.
Absolutely, yeah. And yeah, I never knew if they didn't want to speak English to me, or they just wanted me to speak Spanish.
Yeah, I think I don't know, it's a mix between the two. But
Yeah.
so some compare Guatemala to, I guess, some of the other countries you've been to in terms of safety. Uh what is it, more on the safer, dangerous side?
Yeah, I felt safe um, the entire time in Central America. Things were different in terms of culture and one might say economy. A lot of these people you came across, just walking the streets, walking through the paths in towns. You come across a lot of people who are farmers. A lot of these places have agricultural areas, and as such, they carry their tools. And so one of them is machete. A lot
Yeah.
of the time, you'll just be walking down the street, and you'll meet some guy from, I guess I'm assuming, a farm, and he has his food stand, and yeah, he's got a machete out because that's just the tools they use. But to us,
Yeah.
Americans, Canadians, that might be really threatening at first, but that's a part of their culture too. So I think there's an initial culture shock, and then you realize that, what, this is kind of the standard. This is, you know,
Yeah, that's just they got tools, and even sometimes when you see people like offloading, say like supplies to like a bar, like cargo truck type of thing, they'll have some they'll have some strapped to their back while they're doing it. And again, it's another one of those things that's just like it's there, but it's like people are nice and friendly. It's always like in a non-threatening manner. You just kind of got to get used to it.
yeah. And they are some of, honestly, the Central Americans I met, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Guatemala, they were some of the kindest people that I had met on my travels.
Yeah. I could say the same. I think between I went to Guatemala, Belize, and Mexico, but again, in Guatemala, Belize, and Mexico, like literally some of the nicest people. I think I went to one hostel and the lady almost felt motherly. like to everyone. Just will help you speak English or help you speak Spanish. Like, will talk with you, teach with you. It's like food suggestions. It was like, oh, please, like the hospitality is just, this is a little too much almost. Um,
Absolutely.
how how do you think growing up in Canada molded or shaped your view towards travel and I guess just give you the idea or the confidence to just up and go to the Philippines or up and go to El Salvador? Like when we travel, what are like types of groups of people we see? We see a lot of Dutch people, we see a lot of English people, see a lot of Canadian people, like a lot of German people, a lot of Australians. I think that was like the most of the demographic I got from like Central
Oh,
America.
yeah, easily. I don't. I think I said earlier, but like I feel like a big part of it is being in Canada. We don't get to see our own country.
Yeah,
It's too expensive. There's too much of it. Um, and the United States is right there. But it's culturally there are some similarities. Geographically, it's very very similar in some parts, but it's just the world is so vastly different outside of that. Nicaragua, it's like a tropical paradise.
yeah.
Guatemala, you know, same thing. You have these different places. The out on the west end, what's that surf town on the beach? Do you
Uh,
remember it?
ooh,
El
I
Paradon.
El Paradon.
El
Yes, I
Paradon.
didn't go, but yeah, Surf Town. I heard it was a good time. Like it was
Yeah,
like a vibe.
yeah, absolutely. And so like I went to San Juan in Nicaragua, and the people I met said that El Paradon was so much similar to that, and it's like it's a hot beach, surfs up,
Yeah,
great time, it's a vibe. And then you go up to you know Acatenango, and you're in the Alpine hiking.
very diverse landscape.
Very diverse. There's such a diversity um, of experiences and land when you just look outside of the North American bubble, outside of the United States and even Canada. It's just these experiences that you could have. Um, it's just nothing like back home. You know.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we talk about the types of like most of the nationalities you see when we travel. I neglected to say that there one type of people you don't see is Americans, of course. And I guess I'm trying to figure out the answer. I'm trying hopefully we can encourage more Americans to travel and travel properly, travel in a way that's beneficial to you and the people's land you're going to go see. But yeah, it's you always get from my perspective, you always get two types of Americans. You get people like me, and then you get whoever the guy is in Antigua that we saw on the first day. Um,
That guy.
yeah,
He's from Texas.
he
He's
was
from
from
Texas,
Texas.
and was he a boozer? 5 in the
Yeah.
morning, 7 in the morning, noon. He always had a Mickey of tequila in his hand.
Yeah, he is an interesting fellow to say the least.
Yeah,
So
and love to talk about himself.
yeah, yeah, that's for sure. So give me some outlooks. I know traveling is kind of on pause, on play, not something we should be doing. I'm sure you, of course, know all the dangers of coronavirus, but I think like again 2020 is reconceptualized how we need to think about travel and how we need to, I guess, travel slower for everyone's safety. uh are there like any trips you have planned in the future, or like in 2020 were you able to get out the house and do some hikes? How did traveling change for you?
Well, traveling in 2020, it definitely became more domestic. I booked a flight to Nepal for October and didn't get to go.
Yeah,
Prior to that, I had flights for in March to go to Peru to go see Machu Picchu,
yeah,
and those trips all had to be canceled. But the nice thing is that I got to explore my own home a bit better than how I knew it before 2020. I live on Vancouver Island, and there's so many hikes throughout the entire island. We had one of Canada's tallest waterfalls, Della Falls, and I got to go hike to the bottom of that, and that was a phenomenal experience.
So
And
so dive into that a little more. So tell me, Della Falls. I've never been. And you said you hiked to the bottom, which sounds trekish, but tell me about it.
Okay. So yeah, Della Falls, it's Canada's tallest waterfall. A lot of people think of
Okay.
Niagara Falls, but fact check me on this. This is Canada's tallest waterfall, and it's in our backyard, but it's remote, and so not a lot of people go there just because of how remote it is. So what we had to do is we had to drive about 3 hours north of Victoria, which is the
Okay.
capital of British Columbia, to a small town called Port Alberni, where we got on a boat, and we chartered basically just a boatman, a private guy. Sorry, we chartered a boat from Port Alberni on Great Central Lake, to go from one end of the lake to the other end of the lake. And when we dropped us off at the other end of the lake, we were in the Strathcona Park, which is a massive provincial park, but where we entered could only be reached by boat or float plane. And so there's no service, there's no facilities, there's no structures. It's just
Wow.
forest. And so we hiked probably I think 15K to
Sheesh.
get to the base of the waterfall. And on the way, we had to take there was a cable car that went across a big ravine. And we had to load up our bags with one person, send them across, send the cable car back, go back and forth with our
And
group.
just one at a time.
Just one at a time. Yeah.
Wow.
Two if there weren't any bags, maybe.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So it was just absolute remote wilderness. It's like the Canadian wilderness you see in movies that picture, the Pacific Northwest is this unexplored territory. It was just like that. We saw wolf tracks, we saw bear tracks. Didn't see any of the animals in the flesh, but
That's
um,
good.
it was just an unreal experience. It's something I never knew that we had in our backyard.
Awesome.
Uh, so it was just a entirely new experience to get into hiking, to get into the backcountry, and just to see more of Canada.
That's dope, man. So did you camp there? Was it like a day hike? How long did it take in total?
So it being remote,
What do you
we
mean when you say remote?
when I say remote, I mean no cell service. So if you get injured out there and need to call for help, you're using a sat phone. When we scheduled our trip with the boatman, we said we want you to drop us off here, and we want to spend 3 days out here. So come back and pick us up in 3 days at this time. So we're expected to go out there and be back for pickup at a certain time, and then if you run out of supplies, you have to live off the land, type of thing.
Damn, that sounds like making it afraid or something. I guess you got clothes on, but
Oh yeah,
still,
maybe.
it's just meet me at where X marks the spot at 0300 hours.
Exactly. You have this plan made well in advance, and it was nice to disconnect from society. You didn't have a
Yeah,
phone.
absolutely.
It was nice to, you planned your trip. Everything you had to pack in, pack out.
Mhm.
Uh, you planned all your meals in advance, and yeah, we didn't really know where we would end up camping. We just figured we'd find a spot somewhere on the trail or just at the base of the waterfall, and we
Oh,
did.
that's
And
awesome.
um,
Make a little
yeah,
fire.
yeah, exactly. Have a little
That's the way to
fire up.
do it. So tell me about disconnecting, because I'm a huge advocate for just immersing yourself in nature every once in a while, disconnect from society, that kind of thing. I think there's something very, very tranquil about, just nature being all around you and, hearing leaves crunch and trees fall and birds chirping. So tell me, I guess, what's your relationship with nature and some of your favorite parts about it.
My favorite part about being out in nature is just the organic experience that you're having with your friends, with the trees, all the flora and fauna around you,
Yeah,
all this. And part of like why I like hiking remote is just everything is undeveloped. Everything is how it was in its natural state, besides just a trail going through there. And then having no cell service as well, just nobody can contact you. You're just there without distraction.
that's awesome.
It's You get to connect with your friends who are around you. You get to connect with the land, and just the pure beauty. There's no smog in there. There's no
Clean
work
air,
calling
just
you.
breathing
Yeah,
real good.
yeah, exactly. There's no Instagram blowing up
Yeah,
your phone. You're
that's what's up.
absolutely genuinely present in the moment, and you are for your entire trip. And to me, there's just something that's so pure and you know
Yeah,
enjoyable
I feel you,
experience.
man. Absolutely. So, you mentioned being present, but I guess looking forward to 2021. Happy New Year. And
Yeah.
do you have any travel plans for 2021? What do you I guess from a medical perspective, what's your outlook on travel moving forward?
Travel moving forward, there are right now certain places where you can go with a little bit of hoops. Like now, Canadians can go to Hawaii if we get a negative COVID swab within three
Yeah.
days, depending on a flight. But to be honest, for myself, I feel like we have a sort of ethical responsibility to be at home and not put anyone else at risk. We're young, we have healthy immune systems. Um, I don't want to be an asymptomatic character. I don't want to
Asymptomatic
be
carrier. Yeah.
a COVID-19 carrier and infect somebody in Hawaii, takes it home to their innocent grandma, and they get sick, maybe they die.
Yeah.
So for me going forward, I'm not doing any travel until I'm vaccinated. And I think when we are vaccinated, it's going to look entirely different in terms of travel. I think we're going to be going to vaccine passports, similar to
Mhm.
yellow fever. The yellow fever's in parts of Latin America, parts of Africa, and you travel with your passport, but then you also get a vaccine passport. And to enter these countries, you have to be vaccinated. And if you're not, sometimes they'll either turn you away or they'll vaccinate you on the spot in the country. So I'm thinking possibly in the future we might be turning to that with a COVID-19 vaccine passport.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
yeah, World Health Organization had kind of talked about that at the very beginning of the pandemic and said, this is too early, and we don't know how much immunity you're going to have once you're vaccinated. So I can see vaccine passports being a thing. Another big issue that I kind of worry about in selecting where you're going to travel, and this is really going to affect, I think, a lot of us who are backpackers and appreciate going to poorer countries, is the allocation and distribution of vaccines.
yeah.
Poorer countries, Cambodia is one I'm really worried about. Other
Not
places,
first in line.
Guatemala too, and
Yeah.
Nicaragua. These countries aren't known to be extremely wealthy like the US or um, you know
Yeah.
countries
Europe
in the
or
EU. These
yeah.
countries are going to have a hard time procuring the vaccines. I think part of that's going to be due to cost, and then also due to whatever contracts they may have had with any pharmaceutical companies to fund research. Like Canada, they've made contracts with, say, Pfizer. They funded some of their research, so part of the deal was that they would be entitled to some of the vaccines, you know, closer in line.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so these poorer countries, I'm worried that they're not going to be able to procure enough vaccines in 2021 to safely vaccinate their population and make herd immunity effective. So,
Yeah. In order to be able to travel there and not put people in what like widespread danger type of thing.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you look at a country like Cambodia too; they still haven't really recovered from the Cambodian genocide, and
Yeah.
they don't have cold storage transports. Like uh, we see semi trucks that have just a little kind of AC box at the front, turns the temperature down. They don't have that as prominent
Yeah,
in Asia. So I am worried about these poorer countries. I am worried about what that will mean for backpackers and traveling to these places.
I completely agree with you, man. I'm definitely worried. I'm staying home until further notice, until everything kind of settles down a little bit. But Matt, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Um, I appreciate you coming on the pod. Uh, for anyone listening, if you're watching on YouTube, you can like, subscribe, and you can catch this podcast on all streaming platforms.